Welcome to Fantasy Empire, home of your fantasy baseball, football, news, rankings, stats, all that good stuff. And today we are doing our first base rankings. If you did not check out my last video, we broke down the catcher rankings, the top 15 of those. Make sure you check that out because catcher is rough this year and you're going to want your newest ratings. Next episode, we're going to be hitting second base as well. And second base is one of those positions that, you're either going to do good or not. And after we do all the positions, I'm going to be talking about strategy on when you want to draft these positions. But today we're talking about first base. Now I have 21 first basemen, not 20, 21, because there's a guy I wanted to add in there. We're going to start from the bottom and go up. This is my rankings for a standard league, not dynasty, not punting home runs, not punting stolen bases, just your standard rankings. Now, once again, we are in tiers here. We have different types of tiers, and you kind of want to make sure you draft tier-wise, which I'll talk about in the strategy video when that comes out another time. But we're going to go ahead and start off at number 21. And this is a guy I just wanted to add in here just because, I mean, you never know because he's on a new team. So I'm talking about Justin Bour, who was the main home run hitter of the Miami Marlins, but is now at the Los Angeles Angels. He is projected to have around a 250 average with 26 home runs. So you're not doing great on average, but this is a guy that maybe you draft as your third base or third first baseman because he's going to get you around 20 home runs, 20 to 26 or 28, something like that. And I forgot to mention this is the bottom tier. Next up at number 20 is going to be the man from the Pirates, Josh Bell. Last year he had a pretty good season. This year I'm basically seeing him mimicking last season. So projection is probably going to be around a 260 batting average. Not going to get you a whole lot of home runs, maybe somewhere in the teens. Not many stolen bases at all. But he's going to be a guy that's going to get you some runs because of where he is in the lineup. Expect somewhere around 70 to 80 runs. So this is definitely a decent guy to have at number 20. Next up is the guy that my Tampa Bay Rays, I can't believe it, they sent him down for assignment, and he got picked up by the Minnesota Twins. Number 19, C.J. Cron. C.J. Cron last year hit 253, and he had 30 home runs. He didn't even play the entire year. This year, expect him to probably hit around the same, 260, and I expect him to hit around, 30 home runs again, just like last year. But he's on the Twins this year, so you never really know what's going to happen, whether he plays that first base role a lot, whether he plays the DH role a lot. You never know, but it's definitely a guy that has some upside, and he's shown that he can play well. So C.J. Cron, definitely a guy to look out for. Next up, he doesn't really count as a first baseman anymore, as he's multi-position, but I just have him in here because Eric Thames, low batting average at a 232, but he does hit decent amount of home runs. He's going to probably get somewhere around 20 this year. He had a breakout year the other year, but to me, this guy, you don't necessarily go after him unless he's there. That's the only time I'd really pick him because he's kind of declining. But I still, I don't know if I really like him over C.J. Cron, but I just think that he does have a little more upside, so that's why he's there. Next up is a decent ad if you are looking for Houston players. Houston, a team that will get you a lot of runs and RBIs. Talking about Tyler White here. You're going to have a low batting average, somewhere around the 240s, but he's projected to have 22 home runs, 63 runs, and 74 RBIs. So if you need RBIs and runs and you're looking for a bench first baseman, nothing better than Tyler White, really, because that's exactly what he's going to get on the Astros. I don't have very much to say about him except that, but that's how Tyler White is. So still continuing this bottom tier. This next guy here from Toronto, Justin Smoke. Breakout season last year, 25 home runs. He's actually the 9th best first baseman in the league, which is interesting. This year I see him upping his batting average probably to somewhere around like 250, 260-ish possibly. But he's going to hit you 30 home runs this year. I can probably guarantee it. And he's going to get you a lot of RBIs. He's pushing somewhere around 80 RBIs, 70 runs, 30 home runs. I mean, that's going to be a great year. To me, he would be higher up on my list, but his batting average is just really low. 250 from a first baseman. Wouldn't exactly, enjoy that a whole lot. Next up, the Greg Bird replacement, Luke Voit. He has a lot of upside. That's all I got to say here. 273 batting average and 20 home runs is what he's projected. So, to me, I would pick Smoke over him, but I have Voit ranked higher because of the fact that he's on the Yankees, and the Yankees can turn something or nothing into something, really. Although I wouldn't say Voit is nothing, but you get the point here. They can have a guy projected to bat 273 and get 19 home runs and finish the year off with like 40. So, you never know with these Yankees. So that ends the bottom tier. Now we have the bottom mid tier. So these are the kind of guys that maybe you have in your flex, your OP for a little bit. I don't know. Utility slots possibly. These are the guys you're going to have there. So my next guy here from the sorry, I had a brain fart. From the Rockies, Ian Desmond. 251 batting average, 20 home runs, and 20 stolen bases. Let's get a round of applause. This is a 2020 candidate. In a standard league, or really any league, a 2020 guy is super valuable. He's going to get you 20 home runs. He's going to get you 20 stolen bases. He does that yearly. He had 20 stolen bases last year, 22 home runs last year. He's going to get a good amount of runs and RBIs, probably somewhere in the 70s. You can count on this guy if in a total week, you can count on this guy getting a home run, a stolen base, a run, and maybe 2 RBIs. You can count on that, and he's consistent. So that's why I like Ian Desmond a whole lot. And this guy here, Miguel Cabrera, our next one up on the list. How is Miguel still playing? That's what I want to know. I'll tell you one thing. He's definitely not getting any stolen bases. But his batting average, I think it's going to take a dip, really. He batted 299 last year, but it was a short year. Obviously, he only had 22 RBIs and 3 home runs. But probably hit somewhere around the 280s. I think that his batting average is going to decrease. I think he's going to push 20 home runs, but probably not get it. So, to me, he's still ahead of Ian Desmond because of the batting average, but only that. Next up on the list is another guy, another first baseman the Rays just decided to not keep. Jake Bauers is now a Cleveland Indian. His batting average is still nothing to be desired about, low 200s, and his home runs are still nothing to really be excited about, probably only somewhere in the teens. But ESPN has him projected at 13 stolen bases, 75 and 70 on the runs and RBIs. So it makes sense that he would be ahead of he would be ahead of Miguel here, but the batting average is still super low. If his batting average gets higher up, this guy is a top 10 first baseman, but not with where he is at right now. Next one, as I believe we cracked the top 10 here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, we're not the top 10. This guy is 11th, Matt Olson. Olson had a very good year last year for Oakland. I think he's going to basically do around the same, around a 240 batting average, 30 home runs, 80s in the runs and RBIs, and no stolen bases. He was actually the 6th best first baseman last year. Expect somewhere around the same this year for Mr. Olson. I like him. I think he's going to be good, and if this is your starting first baseman, you're definitely not in a bad spot. So now, and that's the middle tier. That's the bottom middle. Now we enter ourselves into the middle tier. So these are 5 guys that, if you're on a 10-team league, everybody's going to have a starting first baseman, right? So that means one of each. So these guys are going to be your preliminary starters. So you either want to draft someone in the mid tier, which I'm going to go through these 5 guys, or you're going to want to draft someone at the top. You don't want to have, for instance, Olson and you don't want to have Olson be your starter unless you're going to draft like Ian Desmond right after. You want to make sure you can either get a top tier, a mid tier, or at least draft first baseman back to back or something. And it'd be great if you can get a top tier and a mid tier first baseman, but then you're going to be lacking in some other positions that maybe you don't want to. But cracking number 10 spot is a guy that did pretty good for the Padres last year, Eric Hosmer. Still on the Padres here. He's going to get around 20 home runs. He's going to get a lot of RBIs, a lot of runs, probably somewhere in the 80s. And his batting average is okay. Probably 260s, maybe a 270 if you can crack that this year. But he's definitely a quality starter to have. And that's all I got to really say. I mean, he deserves his 10th position. Number 9 is going to be Mr. Carlos Santana. Santana, good year last year. Can he do it again? I'm not sure. He was the 10th best last year, so pretty good. His batting average was not very good last year, though, at 229, but he can up it. That's the thing. He can up his batting average, and if he can do that, then he deserves this ranking. If not, then he's probably a little bit lower. But the thing is, on the Indians this year, so, he has the possibility to get a lot of runs and RBIs, maybe even the 90s. So, and if he can get 20-ish home runs, then he's definitely worth it. He's definitely good, and a guy you want in your starting lineup. Next up at number 8, the man who came on the scene last year, Jesus Aguilar. Aguilar on Milwaukee, he just took over Thames, and that's why Thames was in the outfield. But Aguilar was the 3rd best first baseman last year, and the thing is, if he hits 30 home runs again, which he should, he maybe is even better because this guy gets triple digits in RBIs. Talk about it, last year had 108 RBIs. This year he's projected to have over 100 again, and a 260 batting average isn't terrible when you look at 33 home runs and 103 RBIs. So Aguilar, I could probably rank higher than 8th, but I don't know, man. I really don't know if he can redo what he did last year, but obviously I have him ranked at 8, so I think he will, but maybe not as huge as a lot of people may think. Next guy here at number 7, Edwin Encarnacion. Edwin, not very good at batting average, I will tell you that right now, but he is in Seattle this year. He's in a new team every year, it seems like. This is another guy, just like Aguilar, who's going to get 30 home runs and over 100 RBIs. He's actually projected for 38 home runs and 106 RBIs. I think he can do that. This is a guy I go after every year. I don't always get him, but he's usually really cheap to get. Not a whole lot of people actually go for this guy. I'm pretty sure Aguilar and Hosmer and Olsen are going to get drafted before Edwin, because it seems to happen like that every year, where he gets drafted way after his rank, and whoever gets him is usually a pretty good team. So 40 home runs, 100 RBIs, I'll take it, and that's why he is number 7. And number 6, to finalize the mid tier, can't talk today, is going to be Jose Abreu. Abreu, pretty good with the White Sox a couple years ago. Last year, This year, I think he's going to hit high 200s, maybe 280, and probably around 30 home runs. It's going to get you close to triple digits in RBIs and runs. Maybe not triple digits, but at least in the 90s for each of those. So, a great pick to have. Now that I look at it, I would pick Edwin over Abreu, but then again, I wouldn't, just because Edwin's a little bit older, Abreu a little bit younger, and Abreu's got a little bit more to work with, being that, he's not going to be outdone by any other White Sox. Meanwhile, the Indians have other guys like Lindor that can take some stuff away from him. So that's why I still have Abreu over Edwin. Now we get into the top 5. Starting off at number 5. Remember, you cannot go wrong with any of these guys. You definitely want to draft these 5 if they are there, if they're the best player available. Number 5, Joey Votto. Joey Votto is good every year. Really. This year, he's going to hit 300, more than likely. Maybe 298. That's what ESPN says. But 80 home runs, 21 RBIs, 78 21 home runs, 80 runs, and 78 RBIs and 4 stolen bases is what his current projection is. I think he'll do something around that this year as well. Joey Votto is always a consistent player, always it seems like solid pick. No matter, like, if you overpick him, maybe not, but usually he's there, so take him if he's there. Number 4, and now we're starting to get to the parts where, you really can't go wrong, but this is just my opinion. Number 4, Anthony Rizzo from the Chicago Cubs. Actually finished number 4 last year, too. This is a guy that has a good batting average, 285 on the projections. 81 runs, 28 home runs, and 100 RBIs is what he is projected. And he'll sprinkle in some stolen bases. He gets 6 a year. Seems like every year, so 6 again probably. But yeah, if you want a good average and 100 RBIs, pick Rizzo. So obviously, if you've picked like home runs, or if you pick stolen bases or something in the first 2 rounds, or maybe not even first 2 rounds, but like if you need batting average and RBIs, Anthony Rizzo is one of the better guys here. So pick Rizzo if that's what you're looking for. Now we enter the top 3. This is a guy that really came on last year, really showed what he is all about. Cody Bellinger finished the 5th best last year. This year he's projected 263 on the batting average, 94 runs, 31 homers, 92 RBIs. But the reason he is ahead of Rizzo and Votto is not because of the average. He does have better runs. The RBIs are pretty much close, and he does have more home runs. But really, it's the 13 stolen bases that he seems to get. So you definitely want to get Bellinger over Rizzo and Votto. Which, that's where I have him ranked. But like I said, you can't go wrong if you don't pick Bellinger, but you pick Votto ahead of him. You don't really go wrong, but still think Bellinger is the better player here. And now the top 2. This is personal preference. They're basically the same player. Number 2 is going to be Freddie Freeman. Now, the only reason I don't have him at number 1 is because he seems to get hurt every year. Even last year, he still had 23 runs, 98 RBIs, 94 runs, and 10 stolen bases, and he was hurt for a little bit of the year. This year, he projected 316 on the batting average, 95 runs, 29 homers, and 91 RBIs and 9 stolen bases. Like I said, you can't. It's all up to personal preference on whether you like Freddie Freeman or number 1, who I have, which is Paul Goldschmidt. He was actually number 1 last year too. He's projected 285, 104 runs, 29 home runs, 103 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases. So basically, you decide. Freddie Freeman's got about a 30 to. Well, actually, in projection, he has a .30 batting average better. They both have the same amount of home runs projected, but Goldschmidt has 1 more stolen base projected and a little more RBIs, a little more runs. So, do you want a little more RBIs and a little more runs, or a .30 better batting average? You decide that and how you're going to draft. So, I'm still picking Goldschmidt over Freeman, though, just because of the injuries that Freeman seems to get every year. So, that is the end of this video, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Make sure you stay around for the second base ranks. Otherwise, this has been a Fantasy Empire with your first base ranks.